Good evening, everyone. I wanted to share some of my recent finds from the last 2 weeks. Let us begin with the ladies. Scarlet Witch, #1. The artist for this book is a woman named Vanessa Del Rey. I looked her up, and she has interesting erotica featuring women. So I'm curious what she's going to do with the Scarlet Beauty. Alabaster by Caitlin Kernan. I picked up this book because Neil Gaiman was on the cover, and I researched her, and she's a novelist and also a comic book writer. I read this issue, and it's very good, and the cover is quite haunting. Issue #3 of The Twilight Children by Gilbert Hernandez and Dwayne Cook. #38 of Rachel Rising, Terry Moore's book. I think at the local shop, I'm the only one who picks up this book. I don't know why this isn't more popular. Spider-Woman #1. Very interesting cover, unusual for a comic book. Ms. Marvel #1. About a month ago, I found the first 10 issues of the original run. I got them really cheap, I think for $10. I was surprised that I actually enjoyed them. It's not the typical storyline that I would enjoy, but it was well done. So I decided to pick this one up. Crossed, issue 90, The Badlands. I read Alan Moore's run on the series, enjoyed it, and decided to pick up many of these older issues. And just began to buy the current run. It's a very decadent book. Monstrous #2. I enjoyed the first issue very much. Hopefully not all the creative energy went into the first issue and something was left. Harley's Little Black Book. And this is the cover by Mr. Campbell. This is the color version. The inked version. And the sketch. It's quite the racket what DC is doing with this. I decided just to order them. It's much cheaper that way. Gwenpool Holiday Special. This cover reminds me of one of the posters for the film La Femme Nikita, one of Luc Besson's early films and one of my favorite movies. And Howard the Duck #2 with Gwenpool on the cover. So as you can see, many of these are contemporary comics, which I'm curious about, and some of them I'm just getting for the covers. And others I'm enjoying very much. It's just good storytelling. Now for the boys. Here we go. Batman #47. This one I just got for the Alex Ross cover. And the ink. And the sketch. Again, it's much cheaper just to order them instead of having to go through a bunch of bags and paying just an absurd amount of money. I picked up Doctor number 3, The Master Race. A rather ordinary story. Frank Miller should have stopped with Volume 1. I've already discussed briefly Doctor Strange, number 3, and my disappointment and the way the character's being written. And I picked up Daredevil number 1. I'm just curious because the writer, Mr. So, is a practicing lawyer, and I wonder what direction he's going to take this in. On YouTube, many people don't like this book for various reasons. I still haven't read it, although I've had it for a little while now. Now for some back issues. I've been collecting the Hellblazer run, issues 1 through 300, and I'm filling in the gaps. And I picked up this one, issue number 60, a Garth Ennis storyline. And I think that's Lucifer, our favorite archangel. Now, Hellblazer 59, authored by Ennis. I found these for $1 at one of the used bookstores. Moon Knight number 15. Number 17. And number 23. There we go. Bill Sienkiewicz is an extraordinary artist. And part of the reason I like him so much, of course, in part, is the way he draws women really, really well. Almost looks like Rachel from Rachel Rising. Find of his great pages. There we go. Very talented individual. Makes you envious. I mean, I can't even draw a line with a ruler, a straight line with a ruler. This is my favorite Moon Knight run by Doug Munch and Sienkiewicz. Beautiful stories. A series from 1983 that I did not pick up at the time, and I'm not sure why. I've been thinking about this, but 83 was an interesting time for comics, at least for me. It was early on. Read American Flag, Cerebus, John Sable Freelance, Mr. X, the Legion of Superheroes, Teen Titans, the X-Men. Paul Smith had, was just about to leave the series, to my disappointment. But then this book came out, and I don't know why I didn't pick it up. I just don't know. It's Frank Miller's Ronin. When the trade came out, I did buy that and read it and enjoyed it. But I'm not sure why I ignored this book when it came out. So now I have the singles after, 30 years or so. Book 1. Book 2. It's a very non-commercial book. I think he did this before Dark Knight. I'm pretty sure he did. And I'm surprised how much liberty DC gave him. Book 3. But I think it's one of Miller's major works. Book 4. Book 5 and 6. Another series which I've recently discovered came out in the early 90s when I basically had stopped reading comic books. But Matt Wagner, another book I was reading in 83 was Mage. and later on Grendel, a writer I like very much. Wagner and Grendel and Major, just wonderful stories. But in the 90s, he did something called the Sandman Mystery Theater, which takes the original Sandmans, the 1930s, and he did this wonderful series. So I've been collecting these. This is issue 28. I've been filling in the gaps. Very haunting covers. 27. Now Matt wrote this. He did not draw the issues. 26. 25. Oh, the glare. Not good. 24. 23. 22. And there's a Sandman there, 21. Something out of a David Lynch movie. Number 9. Number 8. Number 7. 6. 5. 4. Very pretty. 3. 2. And number 1. Again, the series takes place in 1938, a year before the Second World War. But the story in the first arc, there are hints of the horrors that are to come with the war. Our hero returns to the city, and someone is kidnapping rich socialites and torturing them. And in the comic, you'll see Hollywood starlets like Tallulah Bankhead, baseball player like Joe DiMaggio, mobster like Bugsy Siegel, and the stories are just very grim. It's something out of Hellblazer, except without the supernatural stuff. Certainly Wagner matured as a writer in this series. Really well done. And I picked this up in the clearance section, one of these bookstores, Dave McKeon's Cages, a hefty book. You can see this big monster here. And I don't know what this is. I suspect it's comics that he did in the 90s and collected into one hefty volume. I always liked Dave McKeon's work. We all know him from the covers that he did for Sandman and Hellblazer. And of course, he illustrated Grant Morrison's Arkham book. So I got this for $4. So it's a little bit torn, but it's fine. It's got a little blurb there by Terry Gilliam. I still remember seeing Time Bandits in the theater when I was young. And of course, Brazil. Beautiful movies. Let's see. Now this, I had this copy. Put the book back on the shelf. These are stories based on the music of the Scottish band Belle Sebastian. There's an early Rick Remender story in this. This is from 2006, published by Image. My copy I lent it to a girl and didn't get it back. This was many years ago. So I decided to order another copy. And if you know Belle Sebastian's lyrics, they're usually cynical about relationships. They're pretty funny at times. The band is a little bit like a cross between Love and Simon and Garfunkel. Let's see, but give you an idea. They just got a bunch of different people doing this. But it's nice stories. And a friend of mine gave me some books. He gave me The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Mr. Gaiman. I had never read his fiction. I read Sandman, but not any of his books. And I think if you're going to start with a novel by Gaiman, this would be it. A middle-aged man goes home to the village he grew up in for a funeral and remembers an encounter he had when he was a child with a young girl. And we delve into the supernatural, the horrifying, and initial love, and also the conscience, how that stays with us, and guilt. And the more I dwell on this book, the more somber I think that actually is, but that's just my nature. A friend also gave me this, Voodoo Heart by Scott Snyder, which I think all of you know from Batman. These are stories that he wrote. This was published in 2006. So I guess it's stories from the early 2000s. Now I don't know when he started doing Batman or doing comic work, but these are just short stories. Now this I have not read. And after reading Ocean at the End of the Lane, I decided to pick up A.S. Byatt's Ragnarok, The End of the Gods. I've read some of her novels, Possession and Angels and Insects. Both have been made into movies. Byatt's an English writer who's been influenced a lot by Victorian literature, and sometimes her stories incorporate supernatural. This one takes place during the Blitz, and a young girl who's just trying to just block everything out decides to read Norse myths. This was in the clearance section, and so I picked it up. And the last book is I decided to get Coraline by Gaiman. Also at the clearance section at one of these bookstores, because now I'm curious about his fiction writing. And finally, Jamie Delano's Outlaw Nation. I think it was Johnny Zero who recommended this book. I have not read anything by Delano except his Hellblazer series, so now I want to pick up his other books. I got these rather cheap, so I don't know what this is about. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. I think it only ran for 19 issues. And I've since then ordered some other books by him, including 2020 Visions, I think is the name of the series. So these are my books from the last week or two. There's a few things which I left out, including the complete run of Hawkeye. So, thanks for viewing. Have a good night.